So I wanted to make a commentary for this video because this is probably the hardest, besides maybe Proving Grounds GM this season in terms of speedrunning it. Because Proving Grounds I see is more long and buggy, whereas this is, it feels like everything except maybe some of the mini screen movement is almost entirely intentional, but it's just difficult. And I've done a lot of work to make this, to get the speedrun to where it's at now. So I wanted to share that information. Because it's entirely possible somebody could come along and beat this. But I kind of doubt that somebody's going to get a faster time without essentially using the majority of these strats, if not all of them. So it's possible to one cycle every abomination in here, but it kind of requires that you have charge with light. With Iron G Fire, you hit pretty much every crit on them, so all 4 crits after you stun them with Unstoppable, and you have Wither Horde going on them. Sometimes they'll just die, even if you don't have all that going, but for the most part you do need all of that running to have a chance of killing them, which is unrealistic for the most part, especially since you're doing a run where you're killing 7 unstoppable abominations in like the first 7 to 8 minutes of the run. So I think it's faster to go for this guy in the back first because of the way he moves. He moves to areas that are harder to kill. Here, you know, just showing how improvable this run is, just messing that up. Obviously you have time to leave a lot of these abominations to die to Wither Horde if you know for sure they're low enough to die to them. I like doing damage from there because you have that little rock that can get you some elevation to see over the cover while not being able to get shot by the mini boss. The mini boss is kind of dangerous, and you can also go to that bridge to do damage to the abomination. But again, if you just sit there and do damage the whole time from there, you get kind of lasered, and enemies will throw grenades at you. Whereas if you're there for a very short time, they won't. So here I was trying something slightly different. So if I have at least a magazine of heavy ammo, I'll go for the abomination, but I didn't here because of ammo RNG and the fact that I used more ammo to kill the previous abominations. I find it's easier to just go invis, get in the room, and direct stick these guys, and here's more very easy time save. I should also mention this was the last run I was doing very late at night, just to get something out for Saturday. So obviously I think it's easier to just get rid of all the stalkers in the room and the snipers and then go for the champs. You can obviously kill the abomination earlier, and I think it's worth it if you can get away with it. But I didn't have the heavy RNG to get away with it this run. So only having 4 ammo, if you have any less than 5, I find it's not even worth it to go for the 1 combo, even though you can finish them in theory. It's just better to leave yourself with 1 to get 1 more stun and get that faster damage to there. And pre-stick the Wither Horde so you don't have to stick it during. That's another thing that's definitely time save a lot of the time, is to stick Wither Horde before you actually go for the stun. Because if you try to stick during the time the champ is stunned, you're just kind of not doing anything. Like you're setting up damage, but like that's time you could be shooting like 1 or 2 linear shots and getting way more damage out of it. So really the only times you'll see me doing that is when really the only time you'll see me shooting Wither Horde like that is when I don't have enough heavy ammo to actually use in that situation. So I'm just doing that to apply it to be getting the damage from Wither Horde, because it's better to do that than to not, if I don't have a better option like that. So obviously it's better to spawn these ads before the walker. You totally can get the walker out. But as you can see right here, here's a run where I just got unlucky with heavy RNG. Usually when I'm that low on heavy before this wave, as you can see, I went around and looked, and there's nothing there. Usually if I'm under a magazine while dealing with the two champions before this wave, I'll get heavy from one or both of those champions, and I usually have enough to either to at least kill one of these guys and get ammo off of them. But as you can see, I just got very unlucky. That entire wave of enemies I killed with my super didn't drop any heavy for me, so I just had to slowly kill. So as you can see, this being a 32-minute, like sub 30 is very possible with better RNG and execution. But I will say, for anybody that's even considering running this, that it's incredibly difficult to finish a run. Like, just finishing a run with the appropriate strats is not fun. But here I am. You're saving a little time jumping on the plate at the same time as killing the champ. So a combination of Wither Horde sticks and smoke sticky grenades is the best damage here. If you're super lucky with linear, then I think the strat is to get it to about halfway to dead and then break a leg and linear DPS the crit. But I've never had enough heavy here to be comfortable doing it, especially since heavy is so good in the following plate room. I don't think it's worth it for how quickly you can kill the walker with just the grenades and Wither Horde. And of course, while the grenade is out, using smoke to refresh our grenade quickly. You'll get the grenade back in a few seconds if you do 3 smokes. If you do 4, you get it back for sure with the setup. I believe I have 70 discipline and about 30 strength, but you're hitting so many legs, you're getting it very quickly. And here I ran out of Wither Horde because I've been getting really unlucky with ammo drops. And I really thought this would kill a bit earlier than it did. So at this point, because of the RNG with some of those things and everything, this is already like 1 minute and 30 seconds behind what it could be. Thankfully, I do get a little bit lucky with the ammo from the walker, but you have to go into this next room with a little bit of heavy. But ideally, you want as much as possible, because you're probably not getting much drops for a while, except from this champ specifically. It would probably be better to run past these guys and kind of Wither Horde them from behind if possible, like get them to aggro the other way. But unfortunately, that barrier, you kind of have to like stand at it for a while before it actually goes down, so you kind of have to just wait. Here it's very important to get those Wither Hordes out early and take out the snipers, because the snipers will hide, and any ads that group up near the bottom will just constantly throw the grenades at you. So only having one guy there, that's not that bad, but I do have to play a little more safe because of it. This cover right here that I'm about to stand behind is the safest way to get the raider that I killed earlier. The raider was just nice to me and not actually going over there. And if you get lucky, the other one will peek from there too. Normally the other overload champ isn't up as far. Obviously, anytime you can multitask like that, by stunning champs, sticking with their horde for damage, and getting rid of any snipers or threats like that is obviously very helpful. I was looking for a heavy drop there because we have been kind of low. And of course I missed the jump as well, already behind, just losing more time. So here I've tried a few different things. So the obvious thing I'm going to do here is invis to get both plates fully down. So I'm summoning all the ads associated with that all at once. And getting the abomination out so I can start doing DPS to the abomination in that wave. It is possible to enter this room, go invis, and do all the plates, and not kill the 2 overloads that are already in the room that I killed before starting plates. But I found you can realistically spawn kill the overload champs that spawn during the abomination wave every time. But as soon as overloads are alive for a certain amount of time, or they aggro you, or they move up to certain areas, their AI just constantly tells them to go into hiding once you start doing damage to them. So it becomes very difficult to actually kill them. And there are some enemies in this wave with the abomination that we're not actually going to kill here. So I'm going to spread Wither Horde around, kill all the enemies that are going to spam grenades at me, and try to kill some of the ones that are further up as well. I want to use Tether as early as possible here, and I want to have Charge with Light so that I'm getting the extra damage. But I do want to be killing things in between as well. So unfortunately I don't... Oh, never mind, I did get Charged with Light back. So I'm going to tether the boss. Unfortunately I missed like all my tethers here, but it is very difficult to get every single one to land from range. And then do damage with the linear. Obviously going for as many headshots as possible. And as soon as the next overload spawns, we want to just spawn camp him. Because if you start doing damage from this early on, the overload will just kind of stand in the open for the most part. He does move around a bit, and he's far enough away that it's hard to hit all your shots on him. But having a wolf tone with this high accuracy does make it a bit more reasonable. But part of the reason we use Tether on the Abomination is not just to get the damage, it's also because we're not going to use the Tether for long enough that we'll definitely get it back if we use it at the very start of the phase like that. And also, where particle deconstruction has to ramp up its shots to the 40% debuff, Tether automatically goes to the, I believe it's 30 or 33% debuff. So basically those shots where I would be doing less damage than Tether, if I was normal, like just shooting the boss without particle deconstruction already charged up, I'm charging it up while getting the Tether debuff. So it results in more damage overall. And those nades are just very dangerous, which is why I'm running Void Concussive. It does mean the final boss can one-shot me, which is, you know, a pain, but I find you get more nades that come out of you that are out of your control than boss shooting at you, because we will be using the AI glitch with the boss where we go invis and go to the other side. And this mini boss here can also give you very bad RNG depending on the pathing he decides to take. The more he hides and doesn't let you get damage on him, the rougher it is. I actually didn't know there was a sniper still there. I guess it got stuck because there were other ads blocking him. But yeah, so we're just going to try to get more damage on the boss. Here's another instance where heavy RNG would come into play. If we could go into this room with full heavy, we could get a ton of damage on the boss just spamming. But unfortunately, runs like that don't come up very often. But even more reason to believe that sub 30 is possible. I'd overall rate this run like for what it could be, probably like a 7 out of 10 in execution, because even though there are mistakes, like getting a run to last this long is already difficult enough with the strats used and the difficulty of the strike in general. But luck would probably be like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, because there is some level of guarantee with ammo drops. If you know, every certain amount of time, certain amount of enemies, especially while you're at low heavy, but it just got very, getting RNG at the right time, like just slightly different times more than anything else, could have saved a lot of time. And right here I'm actually out of Wither Horde, so another strat I found is once the boss is, you know, getting lower, with invis you can more reasonably go up to these areas. You have to move away from wherever you invis very quickly, but you can more reasonably set up Wither Horde shots on the boss if you're not able to land them from distance. So here I'm just going to use more heavy to guarantee the kill, and of course I'm hitting all body shots. The crits are consistent. With the champions, they can be a little inconsistent just because of the rapid head movement that can happen when they get stunned, or they get up from being stunned. But the boss is fairly consistent. It's just a matter of knowing the exact way that it staggers. But the champs are more likely to actually just regen health even if you do everything right. So we do actually want almost everything dead in here, but one thing you've noticed, we're going to leave the 2 chieftains alive because they don't really chase, so it's fairly safe to leave them up. And of course they spawn when you get one of the plates all the way down, which is part of the reason it doesn't save time to leave those overloads up at the very start and try to kill them later. Because you have to push up to kill them, you have to deal with those ads if you wait. And because they hide behind cover, you can't really get away with killing anything less than everything else in the room while going after them. This part up until the boss could use with a slight bit more rounding. It just feels a little weird. It's really not the main thing to be concerned about, because if you get a run to this point that's on pace, then you're going to try to complete it. You're not resetting at this point. You're not going to go for a risky stretch to do so. Like, it's definitely not worth going up to where the overload is, because they can be very rough in those close ranges and with that variable stuff. It's really hard to stick Wither Horde from this spot. I've heard there are better spots, but I haven't had one actually go super well for me. I found if you stand around here, it's very difficult for the boss the champion to consistently land shots on you, and he'll stay here versus potentially moving up to the left, which is a big problem. He does it for a lot of the different spots you could stand, because there's cover he likes to hide behind. But here, for the most part, he'll just stand right there, which is a little bit annoying as well, though, because there's a railing right in front of him, and it's typically you aim center mass with Wither Horde, but you have to kind of hit his head, or else the Wither Horde's just going to bonk on the railing, because it has a kind of an orb of a hitbox. It can just barely clip the railing, but it'll still bounce off of it. So obviously getting tether out just because, again, we won't need it for a while. Get rid of some of these ads. So in theory it is possible to skip past all of these ads pretty much, because all you need to kill is the abomination, but in practice there's no real way to do that. in theory, you can skip any one champion. Obviously, I do the overload at the very start. In theory, you know, maybe you could assassinate one of these champs as they spawn up, and then run past, you know, invis past everything, and that might be faster than the alternative. And that might be faster than skipping the overload. I'm still a little unclear on that, and I think it's a little unsafe in general just because there's so many ads and you've got the snipers as well. The other thing that could save time in this run is that if I could get a better wolf tone or a better linear, because the reads I have does have, because it's an adept reads, you get the higher boss damage and champion damage off of big one spec that you can't get with any other fusion. The problem is the role I have has Vorpal, which is the extra damage, but it doesn't have triple tap. It has Killing Wind, which is kind of a useless perk for this. With triple tap, it would eliminate a lot of the ammo RNG. As well, if I could potentially get lucky this week and get a better bow, because it has a 684 draw time, which could be faster with the right string, and could also get a draw time masterwork to be even faster than that. I believe it can get as fast as 576 with all that. And it could get Archer's Tempo instead of Impulse Amplifier. I'm not sure if the reload speed increased from Impulse Amplifier and from Frenzy Stack. And if they do, I'm not sure if they really stack on my roll, because my roll already has around 50 reload speed. So in theory, I could just get free DPS off of getting a better roll, but I've been farming Umbrals and Strikes and turning in the 450 Parallax 1 out of 2 chance of getting it, of getting the bow, and it feels like 70% or more of my drops are Vulpecula. It was kind of risky there with the boss. Usually the boss will stagger at least once during that time, which will make him turn around. So when I go over here, he'll be looking the other way, which is nice. But just in general, we're not running any, because of the void nades and the other dangers in the strike, we're not running the arc resist that would allow us to just tank a single hit from the boss. So I've had multiple runs die because I get shot by the boss, so we're just going to play it as safe as possible in terms of not letting him shoot at all. The audio is about to kick in here. I was playing some copyrighted music while running these, and it just happened to stop right here, so I'm able to actually use the audio. But yeah, that's part of the reason I wanted to make this commentary as well, is that I couldn't include the majority of the audio for the run. So if you play super well with your tether, I believe it is possible to kill almost the entire double wave of ads that you get here. But in general, if the tether messes up in any way or you have to run away, you can always just kind of circle around, stick Wither Horde on ads, get invis back. You'll see a few times here I mess up with invis, I mess up with some things in general. It's just a high stress run. You don't see many runs to this point, and there's a lot of things that can kill you so quickly that it just doesn't feel like it's worth risking it. So here I easily could have saved time, but it is what it is, and it means I'll have an easier time improving later runs, and I have a clearer idea of where I should be at what times and what I can aim for. So the first wave is pretty self-explanatory. Pretty much everything I saw, everything I did that you saw is something that you've probably seen from other people running this. And here again on the second wave, adds always spawn after you've done a tether with the boss once. So you just want a DPS boss to the phase, break, then go for adds, and then DPS to the phase. And there is some optimization to potentially be done with making sure the boss is wither hoarded earlier, so you can save time with that. But there is somewhat of a cap to the amount of time you can save with that, because we do need our super for certain sections, because we want it for both big waves and we kind of want to get it at the end as well, even though I don't end up using it at the very end this run. So again, we're just gonna stick Wither Horde on the boss and on the ground. I would use more heavy on the boss, but if you're not aiming directly at the head of the boss, not any part of the helmet, but directly at the head from the front, it's very difficult to get a headshot to register. And at that point, I'm just wasting linear ammo because I'm doing the same amount from the bow if I'm hitting body shots on it. And as you can see, it's not being super forgiving with the heavy drops, and I believe I use almost all of it by the end. So here, I'm playing a bit safer than I probably need to, because I am worried about this sniper. Because it is a sniper that can one-shot me. And somehow I live that. We're not going to question it. So again, now we're just going to send the boss. We have super. So in this run we could have sped this up, because I actually don't want to use super at the start here. It's more efficient to use the super on the second and third big sets of adds than it is on this first set, to clear everything out, because you have to start moving. If you play really well, you don't really have to move during this first part, which is kind of the mistake I made here. Because as you can see, now adds are spawning. That's where I wanted to optimally tether. So I spend a lot more time on this wave having to just run around. And I'm also using my super later, which means I don't get it back as early as I would in later wave. So I'm going to use it now because I believe almost everything is coming up here. And I believe I've cleared enough things that that's going to spawn the next wave. But even then, I do that pretty slowly. And here's another nearly full wave coming out without my tether being there to kill it. And there I meant to shoot, then smoke, and I only shot. I only smoked. So as you can see, I'm just taking a lot more time on this than I otherwise would be. Because now I'm having to avoid the abomination, on top of dealing with adds being very spread out. And I should be using my nades a bit more, because that'll, you know, it'll let me throw out more Wither Hordes, because I'll be getting my smoke back from the damage. And here again, the enemy died right before I dodged, so I didn't get it back. But yeah, so much of this could be smoothed out. I think sub 30 is not only possible, but realistic. I think a perfect run would look something like a sub 27 or 28. That's unrealistic though. Sub 30 I think is very possible, and it's what I'm going to be shooting for in the coming days. Although I can't guarantee I'll beat this run, because again, getting a run to this point and clearing it is already a lot harder than this run probably makes it look, because especially because of how many mistakes are in this run. But yeah, you can see just killing the unstoppable and everything. I'm down to 4 ammo. I actually messed up here. Here, you actually want to start this wave on the right side and do pretty much the exact same thing as I did at the start of the very first wave with the Fanatic, where I want to start on the right side of the room. So I'm actually going to head over here, aggro the boss, so I can effectively do the strat, but I wasted time doing that. Start over here so that you can go invis and go to the other side. And the boss will be looking that way while a lot of the enemies are getting spawn killed. And you can very easily follow up on that without the boss aggroing you. As soon as those ads are dead, you want to get to tether phase. And pretty much almost as soon as you clear tether phase here, you get ads on the left side. Now I think the fastest possible thing to do is, I think this wave on the left is kind of avoidable. So I think the absolute fastest thing is to burn the boss to the next tether phase, get those double wither hordes out, and grenade if you have it. Because that should let you go invis while the boss is tethering you, which means those ads won't target you. So even though you'd be tethered while ads were up, you should still be able to get away with that. And here I missed a wither horde stick that would have saved some time. As you can see, I'm leaving some of those ads up. Wolf Tone being the fastest bow for this with the damage, it means you don't have solar for the shield. I only just got super with how late everything was last time. So it might, in theory, be possible as well to get super to kind of break you out of the tether. So you stick Wither Horde, he pulls you up, and then you just kind of spam tether to break him quicker, get to the ground, and do DPS. But here my DPS was slow, so he spawns more ads. Because I think you can kind of kill him before those ads really spawn. And of course I don't have my heavy loaded, and I'm hitting bodies with it. So I just take the safe route here of getting the wither sticks on him. And then getting the heavy. And of course then I get more heavy, but it's from that wave on the left. So I just take it safe at the very end just to close out the run. So yeah, this run could be way faster. It would be nice if I had the perfect rolls for it. But all in all, a pretty solid run. And I'll try to run it back and get the sub 30 sometime this week. And here I'm just going to show loadout. Something I neglected to mention, I'm running Charge Harvester and Blast Radius with stacks on stacks to get double charge constantly. I'm using that charge for higher energy fire for the extra damage, and Protective Light to eat that potential extra damage to save me in certain scenarios because I'm charged so often.